Rhythm games are incredibly simple. You hit or tap one thing against another along to the beat of some music, and that's it. But despite the simplicity, they're one of my favorite genres. I've been playing and watching them for ages, and still do to this day. It all started for me with Guitar Hero. That game shaped who I am. It's the reason I have the music taste I do now, and probably the reason I play guitar. But today, we aren't here to talk about that. We're here to talk about some more recent games, such as Osu and Beat Saber. Despite both being rhythm games, they're actually quite different. Beat Saber is a VR game where you have a lightsaber in each hand, each corresponding to a different color. Your goal is to hit the blocks appearing in front of you with not only the correct colored saber, but also in the proper direction indicated by the arrows on the blocks. Osu, on the other hand, is a normal flat screen game, where you use your mouse, or in a lot of people's cases, a pen and a tablet along with your keyboard, to click or tap on some circles. Now, despite these games playing very differently and having a wildly different soundtrack from each other, there's one thing that's shared between the two. This guy. Camellia is a Japanese artist who, in all honesty, we don't know much about. But I don't think that really matters. His music speaks for itself. It's incredibly well composed and always offers a series of ups and downs, breaks and speed ups that make it basically perfect for rhythm games. I'll get into the more specifics in a minute, but I encourage you to listen to the full version of any of the songs I use in this video, as 1, they're amazing, and 2, having the context of the song in its entirety will really help you appreciate how good some of these parts truly are. I'm going to break this video into a few parts. Number 1 being the chord and melodic structure of his songs, 2 being the rhythmic aspect of these tracks, 3 being how these parts all fit together, and 4 how these songs fit perfectly into rhythm games. Now before I start, I want to say that I don't know much about music theory, however I am a musician. Music is one of my biggest hobbies besides what I'm doing right now, but it's perfectly okay if that's not the same for you. I'm not going to talk about the complicated music theory of these songs, but I'm more going to talk about the energy and emotional response I get from these, as well as how I view them as someone who makes music. It's not going to be too complicated, but if you do have any questions, you can always let me know in the comments or on Discord, however you feel like getting a hold of me. But with that said, let's start with part 1, chord and melodic structure. Camellia songs, or at least the ones that I'm going to talk about in this video, are usually very beautiful. Now, Camellia has a very large variety of songs and genres he makes, but for this video, I'll be talking about songs like Crystallize, Exit This Earth's Atmosphere, Light It Up, you know, those kind of songs. Let's start with the first one I mentioned, Crystallized. Crystallized begins with some atmospheric pads and a soft piano. These go for a while, and then we're introduced to some light drums and the bass. This is traditional Camellia fashion. The intro, or at least the early parts of his songs, are usually very bright, very chimey, and overall just a very pleasant soundscape. He creates this very serene feeling, a calm before the storm, as we'll talk about in a second. This type of instrumentation is very good for establishing the vibe of the song, but just as you're enjoying the beauty of this opening sequence, it all comes in at full force. The drums kick in, the big synths are established, and we get our first taste of what is, in my opinion, Camellia's greatest strength, the melody. The play between the melody and the very aggressive bass sounds give this an interesting dynamic. It could drop incredibly hard and become a rhythmic powerhouse, or it can ride that melody and play on the serene and beautiful vibes that were established in the first part of the song. In this case, it's kind of both. The drop that comes after this is not so much a big drop, but more of a melodic break. It amplifies the energy without sacrificing the melody. A lot of Camellia's work does this really, really well. Even when you have this big, high-intensity moment, there's usually still the melody there. While many artists will end up sacrificing that melody to get the most intensity out of the drop, Camellia doesn't do that. The melody is always there, and if it isn't there at that moment, it's gonna come back very soon. This would be one thing if his melodies were decent, but in this case, it's really important as his melodies are incredible. The melodies of some of these songs are some of the best I've heard in electronic music ever. I'm not entirely sure what it is about them that makes them so good, but all of them just really stand out. From a musical standpoint, he uses a lot of subtle vibratos and slides to get these melodies to feel like they breathe. Rather than melodies being pretty stationary, his melodies slide all over the place in the best way possible. Think of really good guitar melodies. They almost always incorporate bends or vibrato, and that's what makes them feel human and be incredibly expressive. Even in singing, it's rare someone will hold a note without doing any sort of changes or movement. I feel like a lot of EDM producers lose this aspect, and that's why some of them, while being great melodies, just feel a bit flat or 2D. Let's take the main melody to Exit This Earth's Atmosphere as an example. Notice how many of the notes in the melody are fading up and down between each other to give the melody movement. Some of them even fizzle down and out along the lines of something like how a firework would sound. The melodies of his songs are incredibly dynamic and expressive, and that's why I love them so much. If you want to experience these for yourself, I highly recommend you listen to the two songs we've previously mentioned, as well as the 200-step remix of the song Feelin' Sky, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Now, I've talked a little bit about how Camellia has amazing melodies and how beautiful a lot of his work is, but that would be nothing if he wasn't solid rhythmically. And my god, he is. When he wants to, Camellia can make some of the bounciest and hardest hitting drops I've ever heard. On top of that, he just leaves a very strong rhythmic foundation throughout the entire song. Let's listen to that 200-step self-remix of Feelin' Sky I mentioned a minute ago. There's a really cool halftime break towards the end of the song that I want you guys to listen to really quick. It's stuff like this I really love. It takes a step back from the usual insanity and high-paced action. It gives us a second to enjoy more of the background stuff, and again, that melody. If there's one thing you've probably noticed by now, it's that Camellia is fast. Really fast. His songs usually have many parts of them that are incredibly fast-paced and high energy, yet they still maintain the power and strength that a lower BPM song could have. But I can't mention fast without mentioning it. The moment every Osu player breaks their keyboard for, the moment every Beat Saber's player's arms just dread playing, the moment you just take a deep breath and hold on for dear life. The final drop. Your blood is pumping. All the buildup is finally paying off. Then that melody comes back in, and oh my god, is it one of the greatest feelings in any game ever. If you're a rhythm game player who likes these songs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's the thing with Camellia. Those blistering sections with incredibly dense parts are what makes it all worth it. If you got just as far deep into these games as I get, making it to one of these parts can feel like one of the most high stakes and anxiety-inducing things ever. The first time you pass, the first time you clear that track, that is one of the best feelings you can get from these types of games. We've talked about some of the amazing parts of Camellia's work, but now is the big question. How did these all fit together? Well, let's use the song Newspapers for Magicians as the example here. The beginning opens with that atmospheric and serene soundscape we've talked about, well, this time incorporating almost a retro or 8-bit feel. We sit there for a while, and then it all comes and hits us full force. From there, we have a small build-up, and then a break with one of the best melodies I've heard in a long time. Another small build-up, and we get a taste of one of Camellia's incredible drops. And after that, we have a break period. A period to rest and to recoup before the storm comes in full force. One more drop, and then the moment you've been waiting for finally comes. After that, take the incredibly aggressive drop from before, smash it together with the beautiful melody previously established, and you get one of the best drops I've heard ever. Please, for the love of God, listen to the full song. It's not the same with me interrupting every minute, so please, just give it a listen. So, with all that said, it's time to talk about my final point. How does this all fit into rhythm games? Well, you see, Camellia songs are usually incredibly difficult due to their high speed and very bouncy sections. Being able to play these songs usually signifies a pretty good player, and that's partially why I love them so much. If you're already at the top and an incredible player, this doesn't really matter. But for people like me who are good but not anything special, these songs are like milestones. Completing some of Camellia's songs in various games has been some of my biggest accomplishments within those games. Completing these songs is very memorable and something to be proud of regarding your skill and your improvement in these games. And a lot of the community seems to hold these songs with just as much importance as I do. The Osu map for Exit This Earth's Atmosphere took months to make and has some incredible care put into it. The song has so many custom hit sounds throughout it that play along to the song and add little details that make it special. My point is that other people care about this stuff even more than I do. Camellia is more than just a guy who makes the hard songs for rhythm games. Camellia's songs are some of the greatest in the genre, and an important part of the skill climb of these games. In both Osu and Beat Saber, they're some of the hardest songs that are still playable by the average Joe. I mean, these songs, you have to be good to play, but they're not impossible. They're not the songs you look at and think, wow, the 1% that can actually play that is gonna have fun, but I can never dream of touching that. But since these songs are doable for people like you and me, they're incredibly rewarding. A lot of people like myself look at these songs as kind of like a big hill to climb, the next step if you want to say. And with that, I leave you with my final thought. Camellia songs are not only incredibly well written and produced, but they also mesh perfectly into the high-level play of rhythm games. The fast-paced and unforgiving drops partnered with the beautiful melodies makes each song and playthrough an experience rather than just a simple track. Go give some of them a listen. Or if you're into these games, go play a couple of them. I promise you'll find at least one that you enjoy. Thank you for watching. This was definitely my most ambitious video so far, and I'm doing it on a completely new editing software, so it's definitely my hardest to make. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you. As usual, let me know what you thought or anything I could be wrong about in the comments. I love hearing your guys' opinions, and your feedback is what keeps me going. The next couple videos should be some of my best yet, so I hope you're as excited as I am. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you.